The most expensive lessons in life are not the ones you pay for with money, but the ones you pay for with time, silence, and suffering. I learned these lessons alone, in a small apartment in Brooklyn. No one knew I was falling apart. I smiled in public, replied, "I'm fine," when asked, but every night I sank into a quiet war with my own mind. I didn't lose everything all at once. I lost myself slowly. One bad habit, one anxious thought, one sleepless night at a time. And it wasn't a book, a friend, or a sudden breakthrough that saved me. It was three painful truths. Each one came at a different point in my life, and each one nearly broke me before it saved me. But what held those truths together was a philosophy older than any self-help trend, a way of thinking that demanded brutal honesty, radical responsibility, and inner strength. The ancient philosophy of Stoicism. And if you're still here, then maybe, like I once was, you're ready to stop running from the pain and start listening to what it's trying to teach you. These are the three life lessons that pulled me out of depression and brought me back to life. Slowly, painfully, but fully. Not as a guru, not as a coach, but as someone who's been there. Let's begin. Life lesson number 1, control what you can, let go of the rest. Brooklyn, 2019. It was December 2019. The earliest whispers of a strange new virus were just beginning to surface in the news. A story from Wuhan buried between holiday ads and celebrity gossip. Back then, none of us could imagine how much the world would change. But in my small apartment in Brooklyn, something had already started to break inside me. I was burned out. I was waking up at 10, sleeping at 2, scrolling for hours, working without purpose, and still telling myself I was fine. When the first lockdown hit a few months later, and the streets outside went quiet, painfully quiet, it didn't feel like a break. It felt like the weight I had kept outrunning had finally caught up with me. There was no one to meet, nowhere to go, no distractions left. It was just me and my thoughts. And the truth was, I was not okay. At first, I kept pretending. I built elaborate to-do lists I didn't follow. I kept checking emails that no one was sending. I told myself it would all go back to normal soon. But inside, I was unraveling. One Thursday, I remember it because it rained all day. I stayed in bed till 3 p.m., the kind of sleep that's not really sleep, just exhaustion, just escape. I felt powerless, like life had pressed pause, and I had no remote. And then I found this old notebook. In the back of a drawer, dusty, with a single quote on the first page I had scribbled during a Philosophy 101 class. Years ago, Epictetus once wrote, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not." That line hit me differently that day. I read it again. Then I picked up a pen and wrote underneath it, "What is still up to me?" It felt like a lifeline. I couldn't control the virus. I couldn't control the job market. I couldn't control whether the world would ever be the same. But I could control if I made my bed. I could control if I drank water instead of another cup of coffee. I could control if I sat in silence for 5 minutes or let the noise win again. So I cleaned my kitchen. I took a cold shower. I turned off the news. Not because those things would fix me, but because they reminded me I still had agency. And slowly, inch by inch, I began to feel not better, but stronger, more honest, more awake, more grounded in the only space where freedom truly exists within my own choices. The Stoics weren't promising happiness. They weren't selling comfort, they were telling the truth. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." That winter of 2019 didn't get easier, but my way of facing it did. Because the moment I stopped trying to control the storm and started learning to steer my own ship, I became free. That's the first lesson that saved me from the depths of depression. Focus only on what you can control. Let go of everything else. And in that little apartment in Brooklyn, with nothing certain outside those walls, I built something the world couldn't take away: inner clarity. Life lesson number 2, you are not what you lost. Finding stability when everything falls apart. It was the summer of 2022. I was still living in the same Brooklyn apartment, but the air felt heavier than before. Inflation had soared. The shelves at the corner store looked emptier. Prices felt like they doubled overnight. But the storm didn't start in 2022. It had been building for years. Since the world came to a halt in early 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic had shattered more than just public health. It fractured economies, tore through small businesses, and left industries in limbo. What looked like remote work flexibility on the surface was, for many companies, a countdown clock toward layoffs, closures, and desperate cost-cutting. And I didn't escape it. After 5 years of loyalty, I was let go in a 15-minute Zoom call. Just like that. No severance, no warning, no thank you. I sat there staring at my laptop screen long after the call ended. The silence in that little apartment felt deafening. I wasn't just unemployed, I was untethered, stripped of the routine, the title, the small certainties I had taken for granted. And that's when the second wave hit me. Not financial, emotional. The fear of not knowing how I'd pay next month's rent. The guilt of feeling useless. The shame of opening LinkedIn and seeing everyone else seemingly thriving. At first, I tried to stay positive. I told myself I'd bounce back quickly, but the weeks dragged on. Rejections piled up. Savings began to vanish. I watched my identity, once tied to performance, career growth, and monthly income, slowly disintegrate. For the first time, I questioned not just my future, but my value as a human being. I remember walking down Franklin Avenue one evening, watching people drinking coffee, laughing at outdoor patios. I felt like a ghost passing through a world that was still moving. While I stood still, stuck in a loop of regret and fear. And one night, while scrolling through the darkest corners of my mind, I found a sentence in a worn paperback of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." At first, it scared me, but as I sat with it, I understood its depth. I had spent years tying my worth to things I could lose: a job, a title, a monthly paycheck. But the Stoics warned against this long ago. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." I didn't want to hear that at the time. I wanted solutions, money, status back, but slowly, painfully, I began to let go. I started writing down every morning, what do I still have that cannot be taken from me? Some days, the list was short: clarity, breath, a warm cup of coffee, a friend who called. Other days, I surprised myself: resilience, curiosity, the ability to learn, to adapt, to start again. I took freelance jobs, odd gigs, anything that bought me time, not just to survive, but to rebuild my perspective. That's when the second life lesson truly sank in. You are not what you lost. You are what you choose to build from the ruins. And from those ruins, I built discipline. I woke up each day at the same hour. Even if I had nowhere to be, I studied for hours, not because someone told me to, but because I wanted to reclaim my mind. I stopped chasing the next opportunity like a drowning man grasping at driftwood. I focused instead on becoming the kind of person who could weather storms, not fear them. As Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." By late 2022, I still hadn't recovered in the traditional sense, but I had something deeper, inner ground that no market crash could touch. And if you're going through a similar storm, I hope this lesson finds you. What you lost may never come back, but who you become because of it, that's entirely in your hands. Life lesson number 3, heartbreak doesn't kill you, denial does. It was a Sunday evening in late October. Brooklyn, the city had just shifted into fall. The leaves were burning orange and gold, and the air had just turned cold enough to bite through a hoodie. I remember that detail because I wasn't dressed for it. I wasn't ready for any of it. Really. I remember the sky turning dark too early, and the soft yellow light of my apartment kitchen stretching long shadows on the floor, leaves crunching on sidewalks, air crisp with the scent of change. She was supposed to come over. We hadn't seen each other for a few days, but something had already felt off. The texts were shorter, the calls less frequent. I made tea for 2 anyway. Jasmine, her favorite. I waited. 10 minutes passed, then 20. I looked at my phone, and that's when it came. A message. "I think we want different things. I can't keep pretending. I'm sorry." Just a text. After 3 years. No face-to-face, no closure, just a quiet ending in a digital sentence. I sat there in the kitchen, the steam rising from both cups, one untouched. The chair across from me, empty. The hum of the refrigerator the only sound. Outside, life went on. Couples walked hand in hand on the street below. Laughter from the bar down the block echoed faintly. But inside my apartment, time felt suspended, like the air had been sucked out. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at that message, over and over. Epictetus once said, "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will. Then your life will flow well." That night, I didn't know it yet, but the pain was an invitation, an opening, to begin again. Not with someone else, but with myself. I kept thinking love was enough, that if I held on harder, she'd stay, that if I changed, shrank, bent myself backwards, she would notice. But she didn't. She left. And the silence she left behind filled every corner of my apartment. That tiny studio in Brooklyn became something else, a museum of memories I couldn't walk through without pain. Her mug was still on the shelf. Her book, the one I bought her last Christmas, still sat half-read on my desk. But the worst part wasn't the objects. It was the air. It was the echo of a voice that used to fill it. I stopped going out. I skipped work. I ignored friends. My days blurred into nights. I'd fall asleep on the couch with the TV on, hoping noise would drown the ache. The lowest point came 2 weeks in. I was eating instant noodles at 3 a.m., watching some old video of us on my phone. She was laughing. I wasn't. I was crying. That was the moment it hit me I wasn't grieving her. I was grieving a version of me that no longer existed. And that's when Stoicism found me again. I reopened Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, the same old copy I'd underlined years ago during college. And this sentence nearly knocked the wind out of me. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. For weeks, I had done the opposite. I gave away all my power to someone else's decision. I let love become a prison. I let heartbreak define my identity. I started asking hard questions. Why did her leaving destroy me this much? Why did I tie my self-worth to being chosen? Why did I treat love like a rescue mission instead of a partnership? The Stoics say we suffer more in imagination than in reality. That became painfully true. I was hurting not just because she left, but because I believed her leaving meant I was unworthy, unlovable, broken. But slowly, I began to practice detachment, not from love, but from illusion. I stopped checking her social media. I started walking every evening in Prospect Park, a stoic kind of therapy. Just me and the wind and the trees that didn't care who I was missing. I created rituals, morning journaling, cold showers, reading Epictetus by candlelight like some heartbroken monk. And bit by bit, I rebuilt myself. Not as someone who moved on, but as someone who returned to himself. Because the real heartbreak wasn't losing her. It was forgetting who I was without her. He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he is not, but rejoices for those which he has. Epictetus once said, gratitude came last, slowly. It began with things like, I'm grateful I can feel deeply, or I'm grateful I didn't betray myself just to keep someone. That kind of gratitude isn't sweet. It's earned. It's brutal. It's real. That winter, I spent my evenings reading and writing by the window. The city moved on outside, and so did I. But not in a rush. Like Seneca said, no man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. So here I am, still alone in that same apartment, but not empty, not broken, just clearer. Heartbreak didn't destroy me. It revealed me. And maybe, if you're going through something like this, it can reveal you too. Final reflection. The lessons that came too late, but just in time. I didn't learn these lessons in a classroom, not from a therapist, not from a self-help book, and definitely not overnight. They came slowly, painfully, like water carving through stone, one heartbreak at a time, one silence at a time, one long night in a small Brooklyn apartment where I thought I wouldn't make it. And I think that's what makes them real. Because the truth is, no one ever teaches you how to suffer well. We're taught how to win, how to succeed, how to keep going. But no one hands you a map for how to sit in the rubble of your own life and quietly rebuild. That's what these 3 Stoic truths gave me. They didn't save me like some miracle cure. They grounded me. They made me strong enough to sit with my pain and not flinch. In the chaos of a global pandemic, I learned the power of presence. That even when everything outside me was falling apart, I could still show up. To my breath, to my thoughts, to the small acts of discipline that kept me human. In the collapse of the economy, I learned the value of detachment, that I am not my job, not my title, and not the numbers in my bank account. I am what I choose to do with adversity. And in the silence after heartbreak, I found myself again. I learned that pain doesn't mean something has gone wrong. Sometimes it means you're finally seeing things clearly. Looking back now, it almost feels obvious. Like, how could I not have seen it sooner? But pain has a way of blinding you. It isolates. It makes you think you're the only one going through it, that you're weak, that you're broken. I believed that for years, until one day, I didn't. And what changed wasn't the pain, it was the perspective. That's the quiet power of Stoicism. It doesn't take the weight off your shoulders. It just teaches you how to stand taller under it. And for that, I'm grateful. I wish I could go back and hand these lessons to my younger self. But maybe I'm not supposed to. Maybe I'm just supposed to live them and pass them forward. And if you're here still watching, still listening, maybe these lessons are reaching you right when you need them most. Maybe you're watching this right now, and one of these storms is happening inside you. If so, I hope something I've said has stayed with you, not to inspire, but to remind you you're not alone, and you're stronger than you think. And maybe, just maybe, this is where your real freedom begins. And if something in this video spoke to you, even just one sentence, one moment that made you pause, then don't let it disappear. Leave a comment. Tell me what hit the hardest, which part of the pain felt familiar, or maybe which lesson you wish you'd learned sooner. Because this channel is not just a place for philosophy, it's a space for people like us who've been through the dark and are choosing every day to walk back toward the light with discipline, with honesty, and with a little bit of Stoic courage. If you're on that path, subscribe, not because it helps me, but because it might help you. This is just one chapter. There are more coming, more stories, more lessons, more reminders that even when life breaks you down, you can rebuild stronger. And if you know someone who's struggling right now, send them this video, not as advice, but as a quiet hand on the shoulder, a way of saying, I see you, I've been there, you'll make it. Thank you for watching, thank you for feeling, and thank you for staying.